Fortunately, although the giant tentacle still held his body tightly, it seemed that the three-tailed demon fox had issued a temporary order not to harm him. The tentacle didn't tighten further, allowing Zhang Xiaofan a moment to catch his breath. Finally, the giant tentacle came to a halt in a pitch-black place, no longer moving, but still tightly gripping Zhang Xiaofan. Zhang Xiaofan gasped for breath, his heart still racing. The darkness was as thick as a mountain, and ahead of him, it seemed endless. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaofan felt that in the darkness ahead, there might be an unimaginable monster lurking there. Just thinking about it made him feel a chill from head to toe. In this ancient cave, it seemed as if no light had ever penetrated it, as dark as ink. But this unknown world brought the oldest and deepest fear to people. The huge tentacle wrapped around him seemed to be reminding him at all times that he would face an unimaginable creature. Time seemed to freeze. In the distance, there was a faint sound of fighting and loud noises. Although the sound was faint, it sounded somewhat familiar. Suddenly, in the depths of the darkness, something seemed to stir uneasily. There was a disturbance in the darkness, and although Zhang Xiaofan couldn't see it, countless thoughts flashed through his mind, wondering if the giant monster's body was here. But another tentacle had been extended outside the cave to fight with Bai Yao and the others. But this thought didn't last long. Zhang Xiaofan suddenly felt that the tentacle, which had stopped exerting force, seemed to be startled by something or for some other reason, began to tighten again. Although the speed was not very fast, given the enormous force of the tentacle, this inward pressure truly felt like an unstoppable force of nature. Zhang Xiaofan's vision went black, and his whole body was in pain. He screamed in agony, ignoring everything and desperately activating the other half of his self-cultivation, the supreme Buddhist technique Great Brahman Prajna, passed down from the senior monk Puzi of the Tianyin Temple, hoping to withstand it for a few more moments. But unexpectedly, when he activated it, this supreme Buddhist technique, with its entirely different cultivation method and way of operation from the Taoist arts of the Qingyun Sect, immediately began to reject itself in his body. His meridians felt like they were being pricked by needles, causing excruciating pain. At the same time, the giant tentacle outside continued to press down, causing his bones and muscles to feel like they were about to break. In the darkness, Zhang Xiaofan felt lost, and his consciousness gradually blurred under the first volume summary of the Book of Heaven, which had previously puzzled him endlessly. The cultivation methods of Buddhism and Taoism were fundamentally different, so how could they eventually merge into one? But at this moment, he found himself in dire straits, feeling as though his body was about to shatter, experiencing immense suffering. However, inexplicably, a certain part of his mind gradually became clear, ignoring the piercing pain and only resonating with the words deeply engraved in his mind. Hence, when movement and stillness coexist, the heart of heaven and earth is revealed. Thus, there is neither existence nor emptiness. Therefore, the heavens and earth follow nature without action or creation. Thus, if things do not exist, they are insufficiently prepared. The fire stick, which had lost its luster but was still held in his hand, suddenly began to glow faintly again. A dim blue light, faintly shimmering, a cold, icy sensation traversed his body. Though Zhang Xiaofan couldn't see anything in the darkness, his eyes widened, and his mind echoed with only one sentence. Thus, if things do not exist, they are insufficiently prepared. ... double quotes. He raised his head towards the sky and screamed, his voice hoarse. If things do not exist, they are insufficiently prepared. The conflict between the Mahayana Prajna and the Taiji Zhuangqing Dao, which had been raging within him, suddenly erupted like the surging river breaking through its banks. It gushed out fiercely from his right arm and forcefully surged into the black fire stick. In a moment, the fire stick emitted a brilliant light. Under the cyan halo, the surface of the stick seemed to react as if stimulated. Every tiny vein became distinct. Even the blood vessels pulsated as if filled with fresh blood, faintly throbbing like dark red and mysterious blood. Clack, 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 ... accompanied by the strange phenomenon of the fire stick. Zhang Xiaofan's body suddenly emitted strange sounds from everywhere. But it wasn't the sound of bones breaking. Rather, it sounded like a violent heartbeat, or blood boiling, or even flesh being pierced and torn apart. Yet there was nothing abnormal about him. Unconsciously, Zhang Xiaofan regained his senses, glancing around. Before he could figure out what changes had occurred to his body, he noticed that he was still being gripped by the huge tentacle. However, what was different was that, after he forced the true methods of both Buddhism and Taoism into the black fire stick, it emitted a slightly different brilliance. Within the cyan light, there was a faint golden glow, and even more strikingly, there were faint blood-red veins swaying, looking sinister and terrifying yet remarkably clear. And this halo had managed to push the surrounding tentacles back slightly. But Zhang Xiaofan soon realized that the power of the huge tentacle was still overwhelmingly strong. As if sensing his increased resistance, the pressure exerted by the tentacle increased tenfold, or even 100-fold, pressing back with renewed force. In just a moment, the halo emitted by the fire stick began to tremble, unable to hold on any longer. Zhang Xiaofan wasn't a fool. He knew that continuing like this would lead to certain death. So, he made up his mind, took into the tentacle, and the surroundings immediately darkened, sensing the darkness closing in. Feeling the boundless silence around him, Zhang Xiaofan held his breath for a moment. Boom! A beam of light suddenly appeared, piercing through the tentacle and emitting the eerie glow of the fire stick. Boom! Another muffled sound, and on the other side of the tentacle, another beam of light burst forth. Following this, the sounds of boom, boom, boom continued without stopping. Zhang Xiaofan widened his eyes in disbelief as he watched the tentacle that had trapped him seemingly being pierced like a piece of thin paper, with more and more beams of light shooting out from inside, illuminating the surroundings and himself.